Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this week's Q&A with Dr. Joe. So I'm really pleased to have this question that was posed to me this week. And interestingly enough, this question came to me in two different ways. So someone sent through to the group. As you know, each Monday we put up a post as a reminder, but you can at any point in time send me a private message or just click on the Monday post if you've got a question that you want to ask, and you can just put it straight into the post if you choose to, if you don't mind others seeing your question. And then each week what I do is, depending on the questions that I get asked through the group, or even something that comes up in a workshop that I think will be of interest to everyone, is I will include that as my Q&A for the week. So this question came through the group, but it also came up in one of the workshops that I was presenting this week. So it was a really good one. And I don't know if that often happens for you, but sometimes when I am mulling through an idea or looking at a topic, I kind of notice it wherever I go. So actually part of me doing this live today relates to the question, but I'll come to that in a moment, as to what I was trying to do and how it was requiring me to use a growth mindset. So the question was essentially, a little bit of an understanding about what a growth mindset is, but particularly how does it relate to performance. So great topic for us to cover, because one of the things that we know is that having a growth mindset is a really good foundation for setting yourself up for success. So when we have this thing called a growth mindset, it certainly brings us closer to achieving our goals. So let's start off, let's make sure we're all clear on what it is. So the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. And what I often do, for anyone who's read the Elite will know that I frame these two elements a little bit differently. I often talk about a performance mindset versus a fixed mindset. But when I'm talking about a performance mindset, I'm talking about a growth mindset. So use the word that you feel most comfortable with. But let's start off with a fixed mindset. So what a fixed mindset is when we have very clear views about how something works or operates, or what the state of a circumstance might be, and that opinion is really not particularly open to shifting or changing. So you might have very set views about a particular thing. So you might believe that success in sport is really about how much talent that you have. And if you think that talent plays a particularly strong role in success in sport, obviously our amount of talent that we have is a relatively fixed thing. So well done if you've got a high amount of talent, that will probably set you off well. And if you have low amounts of talent in something, then you're not going to be particularly good at it, and that's not likely to change. So the thing that I like to remember when we're looking at having that fixed mindset or that growth performance mindset is the growth or performance mindset gets you closer to change. It means you're more open to change, you're more adaptable. And what we find, particularly in any kind of performance or achievement setting, that growth mindset will help us along that pathway. So a fixed mindset might be, and the example I often give in a workshop is I encourage the room full of people to tell me a little bit about what they were like at maths when they were in high school. Now, I've found that's a good question to ask, because I find overwhelmingly, typically, unless I'm in a room full of maths professors, that the overwhelming response that I get from people is they just have this immediate reaction where they go, oh, I was terrible at it, or I'm no good at maths, or I was rubbish, or they use other descriptors to tell me what their maths was like. And so then I get people who think about it in that way to reflect on, so what has that meant for you since school? So if you didn't particularly do well academically in maths at school, how does that influence how you define yourself in relation to maths? And you'll see some people will say, I don't have a maths brain, or my head just doesn't think that way, or I'm no good at it, I'm hopeless in that kind of area. And so therefore, no surprises, you're not likely to then go and pursue a career in mathematics. Now, I use maths as the example, and then invariably I'll have someone in the room who will say, I was awesome at maths at high school, which is great, well done. So then I, will throw other subjects in the mix. What were you like in English, or what were you like in geography or science, or whatever it might have been. So many of us can relate back to a time at school when there was a subject we didn't do particularly well in, and we partly defined ourselves as not being good in that particular area. When we do that in life, that has a very fixed mindset. So fixed phrasing would be things like saying that you can't do something, you're not able to. So that sounds a lot like a fixed mindset. A growth or a performance mindset, on the other hand, entertains the possibility that you can get better. So whilst we acknowledge that talent has a role to play in people's ability at various things, the other thing that a characteristic of a growth mindset, if you like, is that you believe that achievements are also down to effort, not purely talent. So there's a key difference there, and there's lots of different ways that we can look at that. There was one study that I thought was particularly interesting in this area that was done with high school students, and what they did was they looked at students who were all actually in with a maths class, as it would happen, and they were all students who were in a higher level of maths. So these were all students that had already demonstrated some capability with relation to their maths. What they also did is they measured these students on an instrument that measured their growth or fixed mindset, and then what they did was they had them do a particular mathematics task. So they did the maths problem, and they got all the students who got it correct, and then they gave them a choice, and they said to them, right, so now that you've done this maths problem, you've got it correct, you have a choice, you can do another maths problem, and this time you can decide whether you want to do one that is of equivalent difficulty to the one that you've just done, or you can have a go at doing one that's a bit harder. Which one do you want to do? So that was the scenario that was posed to those students. What they found was, most typically, those students with a fixed mindset opted for the maths problem that was similarly difficult, similar levels of difficulty, whereas those students who had a growth mindset were more willing to try the harder problem. So that's one of the characteristics that we see of a growth mindset over a fixed mindset, and then it makes sense to us as to why that would make a difference in terms of performance, is because with a growth mindset, you're willing to try and do something that you maybe don't necessarily know if you're good at it. You're willing to try things that are harder. You're willing to try things that are more difficult. Now, by default, that means you're more likely to fail, but a growth mindset doesn't shy away from the challenges of making mistakes. A fixed mindset, even when you're really capable at something, people will often not want to try something unless they know they're going to be successful at it. So that probably makes sense then why some people sort of plateau out when they are good achievers, but a fixed mindset, even when you perform well, definitely doesn't help you, because with that fixed mindset, failure is bad, is kind of how that thinking goes, and we know that doesn't set you up to then try new things and to extend yourself. So we know that when people have a growth mindset, you're more willing to learn from your mistakes, and you find value in the feedback that comes from not doing it well. So other characteristics of a growth or performance mindset is that you believe that things like intelligence or sporting ability, professional expertise and so forth are things that can be developed. And the other thing that's found through the research is people with a growth mindset are more comfortable and confident in asking questions and admitting that they don't know something. A person with a fixed mindset is much more likely to struggle to show vulnerability in asking a question. They'll see that that's a weakness to not know. So there's a very clear difference there between those with a growth and a performance mindset. So I went through this myself this afternoon. So I'm coming to you now on a Facebook Live, and someone had taught me this week. I've got a person who helps out with our tech, and she suggested that, just to give you the background story, is that the quality of the Facebook videos would be improved if I recorded these Facebook Lives into Zoom, and then they would come into Facebook. So they're still alive, but I don't quite understand how all the technology works behind it. But essentially what would happen is you do it in Zoom, but it broadcasts immediately into the Facebook Live, and you end up with a better quality. She gave me the step-by-step instructions. Now, the easier thing for me to do, because it took me a good 20 minutes to kind of look through the video again and go through all the steps and check that I had everything correct, the easier thing for me to do would be to go straight back to Facebook and just record the live like I've been doing for these last 3 or 4 weeks. I think I said in the very first week, Facebook Lives are not something I'm particularly comfortable with. It's not something I've done a lot of, so I'm very much the beginner when it comes to this. We do know though, that every expert was once a beginner. So we've got to start somewhere. So I've just spent the last 20 minutes setting myself up with this Zoom. I had all the settings going. It was going to record up to the cloud as well, so I had an extra copy, and we're going to edit it down and put it on my YouTube channel. We're going to do all these clever things. And then when push came to shove and I got to nearly the final step of getting it all working through Zoom, something happened with the setup. Probably something that I've done with it. I don't quite understand. We still got to problem solve exactly what happened, but it wouldn't do it. It wouldn't record it. So if I had a fixed mindset, that might be enough. Well, two things. It might be enough to preclude me from even starting it and even trying it. But the other thing is it might be more likely to make me give up because I couldn't get it to work the first time. What's the point? This is hopeless. I don't know how to do this. So that would be a fixed mindset, would mean that I would give up sooner. So I am a little bit more like a dog with a bone. So I do have a growth mindset when it comes to these things. I know that I can learn it. I just don't yet know exactly how to work it. So maybe I've got till next week, till the live next week, to work out how to get the tech working, and I will do that. Did you pick up on the phrasing that I just used? I just used a really crucial word in the growth mindset space that can really help you shift fixed thinking to performance or growth mindset thinking. Small word, 3 letters, and it's the word yet. Think about the difference between these two sentences. I'm not very good at maths versus I'm not very good at maths yet. So even by adding the word yet, and I do that to myself, if I notice, if I'm mindful and I hear myself saying something that's more fixed in nature, I can't do that, I'm no good at that, it's not my strong point yet. So just by adding the word yet to the end of the sentence, entertains the possibility that maybe there's a slight chance that I might be able to get better at it someday with a little bit of persistence and also a little bit of coaching around the tech, which is what I'm going to need to get these Facebook Lives going the way that I want them to. But I will stick with it, and hopefully next week will be the week. So I hope that gives you something to think about in relation to growth mindset and fixed mindset. We do know that a growth mindset does help us on the journey to success. And so would encourage you where you can, and you might want to read other things around that performance mindset. Certainly in the Elite, I've got a chapter in there where I talk about it, but it's an area that you can find lots of resources around growth versus performance mindset. So a key researcher in this area is a professor by the name of Carol Dweck. And she's done a lot of stuff in that kind of space. So if you wanted to have a look at some of her stuff as well, but there's plenty of resources there. And I think from memory, we've covered that on my ABC interviews. So if you go to the podcast there, you will find those. So sorry, I thought I'd put that on Do Not Disturb. So I hope that gives you something to think about for this week. Now, the other exciting thing that's happening in the group, if you're still listening in, 13 minutes in, is the group was something that we started up just a couple of weeks ago, and we're already getting close to 50 people, so that's a bit exciting, 50 people in the community. So I've decided that when we get to 60 people, there'll be a prize. Just a lucky door prize for anyone who is in the group. So if you have anyone that you would like to invite to join us in the group, once we hit 60, I'll jump back in and do another live, and I'll get one of those random generators. Don't know how to use those either yet, but I'll work it out between now and then. So once we get to 60 people, I will jump back in, do a live, and I'm pretty sure that I can work it out. You'll all get a number according to when you entered the group, and we'll just do a random generation and someone will win a prize. All right, so thanks for joining me today. Keep the questions coming, and hope you're enjoying some of the content that's in the group. By all means, if you know someone else who might enjoy being in here with us, please invite them in. And I'm off to the NRLW launch tonight for those of you that follow rugby league. So the Cowboys team, the women's team, are launching tonight and announcing the captain. So looking forward to that as a great evening, and hope that whatever you're doing, that you have an enjoyable night, and I'll see you next week.